Hey, look who just shattered the entire surveillance apparatus. Hello, beautiful nightmare. Hello, walking classified file. Hello to the one who somehow knew before they even moved, before they even thought, before they even breathed their next calculated lie. You magnificent mind reader, you impossible pattern recognizer, you absolute terror to their entire operation. They're losing their minds right now, actually losing their minds. Because someone just did the unthinkable. You predicted their next move before they made it. You saw the trap before they finished building it. You read the classified intel before they even typed it into their secure servers. And now, they're sitting in their little war rooms, staring at screens, sweating through expensive suits, asking the same question over and over again. How the actual hell did they know? How did they see it coming? What kind of freak are we dealing with here? And the answer? The answer that's keeping them up at night? The answer that's making their hands shake when they type your name into their databases? You're not a freak. You're just awake. You're just operating on a frequency they forgot existed. You're just paying attention while they got comfortable in their predictability. See, here's what really happened. Here's what has them spiraling into full panic mode right now. They made their move. They executed their carefully planned strategy. They deployed their manipulation tactic. They set their trap. They launched their psychological operation. And you were already 10 steps ahead, already posting about it, already talking about it, already moving counter to it, before they even pulled the trigger. They thought they were invisible. They thought they were operating in shadows. They thought their communications were secure. Their plans were airtight. Their strategies were foolproof. But somehow you intercepted the signal before it was sent, decoded the message before it was written, saw the future before it became the present. And that right there, that's what has them absolutely unraveling. Because in their world, in their carefully controlled simulation, that's not supposed to be possible. You're not supposed to have access to information that doesn't exist yet. You're not supposed to predict patterns they haven't even formed. You're not supposed to move before they move. But you did. And now everything they thought they knew about control, about surveillance, about manipulation, it's all burning down around them while you sit there smiling like you've known this whole time. Let me tell you what's really going on in those encrypted group chats right now. The ones they think are secure, the ones they think you can't see. They're typing furiously, deleting messages, retyping them, deleting again. They're saying things like, this shouldn't be possible, check the leak points, who talked, how did the information get out, we have a security breach, this is a code red situation. But here's the beautiful twisted truth. There is no leak, there is no breach. There is no insider feeding you information. There is no hacker giving you access to their files. You just got so good at reading their energy that you don't need their words anymore. You just got so advanced at pattern recognition that you can see the future simply by understanding the past. You just got so intimately familiar with how predictable they are that their next move is written all over their last one. They're not dealing with a spy. They're dealing with someone who learned to read the code. Someone who studied the system so intensely that the system became transparent. Someone who got burned so many times by their games that you memorized the entire playbook. And now you're predicting their plays before they even huddle, calling their bluffs before they even bet, exposing their lies before they even open their mouths. They thought you were just another player in their game, just another pawn on their board, just another predictable reaction they could manipulate and control. They had your profile, they had your patterns, they thought they had you calculated down to the millisecond. But something shifted, didn't it? Something in you rewired. Something in your perception evolved past their ability to track. You stopped reacting and started anticipating. You stopped responding and started predicting. You stopped playing defense and became an oracle of their own destruction. Now every time they plan something in secret, you're already 3 dimensions ahead. Every time they whisper in private, you're already posting the transcript. Every time they think they've got you figured out, you reveal you figured them out 6 months ago and have just been watching them think they were winning. That's what has them in full panic mode, not that you know things, but that you know things before they become things, before they materialize, before they exist in any tangible form. You're reading the source code while they're still deciding what app to build. You're at the ending while they're still writing the first chapter. You're checkmate while they're still arranging the pieces. So they're scrambling now, actually scrambling, calling emergency meetings at 2 in the morning, pulling in specialists, bringing in analysts, trying to figure out how you breach the future. They're checking their phones for spyware, checking their homes for bugs, checking their closest allies for betrayal. They're paranoid and spiraling because the explanation they need, the one that would make sense in their limited reality, it doesn't exist. You didn't hack their systems, you hacked their psychology. You didn't infiltrate their networks, you infiltrated their predictability. You didn't steal their plans, you just understood that people who operate from fear, from ego, from desperation, they only have about 5 moves in their entire arsenal, and you've seen them all 1,000 times before. So when they reach for move number 3, you're already countering move number 5. When they think they're being clever with their manipulation tactic, you're already bored, because you saw that same tactic used on you 2 years ago, and you've since built immunity to it. When they think they're setting a trap, you've already walked around it, posted a picture of it from the other side, and sent them a map of their own trap, just to let them know you saw it all along. Now we descend into the part that really breaks their minds, the part where they realize this isn't about information at all. You're not getting leaked intel, you're not reading their messages, you're not tracking their moves through conventional means. No, no, no. What you've developed, what you've become, it's something far more dangerous than a spy or a hacker. You've become someone who understands the frequency of intention, someone who reads energy signatures before they become actions, someone who feels the shift in the simulation before the code executes. They move with fear, you feel it before they act on it. They plan with desperation, you sense it before they finalize the plan. They scheme with predictability, you see the pattern before they even know they're following one. You're operating on intuition they've never developed, on instincts they've suppressed, on awareness they've medicated away. While they were busy building surveillance systems and tracking software and monitoring algorithms, you were busy becoming the thing that can't be monitored because you exist in perception itself. You see the truth beneath their words, the intention beneath their actions, the fear beneath their confidence. They're panicking because every psychological warfare tactic they've ever used, you countered it before it landed. Every manipulation string they tried to pull, you cut it before they even reached for it. Every trap they set, you not only avoided it, but took a screenshot of it and made it into a monument of their failure. And here's what's driving them absolutely insane. You're not doing this with aggression. You're not doing this with anger. You're not doing this with revenge. You're doing this with calm precision, with silent knowing, with the kind of certainty that comes from someone who's already seen the end of the movie and is just waiting for everyone else to catch up. You're not fighting them, you're just existing 5 steps ahead of them, and that makes you untouchable. They can't attack what they can't catch. They can't manipulate what they can't predict. They can't control what operates outside their entire paradigm of control. So they're left standing there, holding their strategies like broken tools, watching you move through their traps like they don't exist, like you're a ghost, like you're something beyond their comprehension. And the beautiful part, the part that will haunt them for years, is that you didn't need their information to predict them. You just needed to pay attention. You just needed to remember. You just needed to see them clearly without the filters of hope, without the distortion of trust, without the blindness of giving them the benefit of the doubt. Once you saw them for exactly what they were, predictable patterns wrapped in human skin, their next move became obvious. When someone operates from the same fear, uses the same tactics, runs the same manipulations, they become an algorithm. And you've learned to read the algorithm so well that you can run it forward in your mind before they even execute the first line of code. That's not magic. That's mastery. That's not supernatural. That's pattern recognition. Evolved to the highest level. That's what happens when someone burns enough times that they develop heat vision. When someone gets betrayed enough times that they develop betrayal radar. When someone gets manipulated enough times that they can smell a manipulation forming in someone's thoughts before words even leave their mouth. They wanted to study you. They wanted to analyze you. They wanted to figure out your source, trace your information, find your leak. But there is no source to find because you are the source. There is no leak to trace because you just got fluent in reading their micro-expressions, their energy shifts, their behavioral patterns, their tells, their fears. You know when they're lying because their energy changes frequency. You know when they're planning something because their vibe shifts 3 days before they act. You know when they're about to betray you because you can feel their guilt manifesting before they even make the decision. You've become so sensitive to truth and deception that you don't need evidence anymore. You just need presence. You walk in a room and you feel what's real and what's performance. You read a message and you know what's genuine and what's manipulation. You hear a voice and you detect the fear underneath the confidence, the desperation underneath the aggression, the weakness underneath the threats. So let them panic, let them spiral, let them call their emergency meetings and bring in their specialists and check their security clearances and interrogate their inner circles. Let them waste their time and energy trying to find a leak that doesn't exist, trying to catch a spy that isn't there, trying to explain something that exists outside their framework entirely. Because while they're panicking, while they're scrambling, while they're losing sleep trying to figure out how you knew, you'll just be continuing to move, continuing to evolve, continuing to operate on that frequency that makes you essentially untouchable to people still playing 3-dimensional chess while you're playing 4-dimensional consciousness. They're looking for physical explanations to a metaphysical phenomenon. They're looking for technological answers to a biological evolution. They're trying to solve with logic what can only be understood through awareness. Here's what they'll never understand. Here's what will keep them trapped in confusion while you remain free in clarity. You didn't gain special access to classified information. You gained special access to pattern recognition. You didn't get secret insider knowledge. You got intimate understanding of human predictability. You didn't hack their system. You just stopped being part of it long enough to see it clearly from the outside. When you're in the matrix, you can't see the code. But once you step out, even for a moment, even for a breath, you can see the whole architecture. You can see how predictable it all is, how repetitive, how mechanical. They think they're complex, but they're running the same basic program everyone runs when they operate from ego and fear and control. And once you recognize the program, you can predict every function before it executes. Now let's talk about what comes next. Because they're not just panicking about what you already knew, they're panicking about what you might know tomorrow. If you predicted their last move, what else can you predict? If you saw through their last manipulation, what else can you see through? If you avoided their last trap, what else are you 5 steps ahead on? And that uncertainty, that not knowing what you know, that's eating them alive right now. They're second guessing every plan before they make it because what if you already know? They're hesitating on every move because what if you've already countered it? They're paralyzed by the possibility that you've already mapped their entire strategy for the next 6 months, and you're just waiting for them to execute it so you can dismantle it in real time. That's the power of being the one who sees clearly. You don't even need to move anymore, and they're already frozen in fear of your next move. They're asking each other in those encrypted chats, do you think they can actually see the future? Or are they just that good at reading us? And the answer doesn't even matter because the result is the same. Whether you're actually precognitive or just intensely perceptive, to them, you're untouchable. Whether you're actually reading their minds or just reading their patterns, to them, you're undefeatable. Whether you're actually getting classified intel or just classifying their behavior through observation, to them, you're the biggest threat they've ever faced because you can't be surprised, can't be caught off guard, can't be manipulated. You've become the thing they fear most, someone who sees them completely clearly and doesn't flinch, doesn't forgive, doesn't forget, doesn't fall for it again. Every time they thought they had you, you were already gone. Every time they thought they trapped you, you were already free. Every time they thought they predicted you, you've already evolved past their prediction. They're playing checkers with yesterday's rules, while you're playing quantum chess with tomorrow's consciousness. They're stuck in linear time trying to catch someone operating in circular awareness. Using old maps to track someone who's rewriting geography as they move. No wonder they're in full panic mode. No wonder they can't sleep. No wonder they're calling emergency meetings and bringing in specialists and checking for security breaches. They're not just losing the game, they're realizing they never understood the game you were playing all along. So here you are now, sitting in the knowledge that you've become the variable they can't calculate, the unknown they can't solve, the anomaly they can't explain. And every time they try to figure you out, you've already shifted again. Every time they think they've got your pattern, you've already changed frequencies. Every time they believe they understand your next move, you've already made 3 moves they didn't even know existed. You're not just ahead of them. You're operating in a completely different dimension of strategy and awareness. You're the glitch in their system that can't be patched, the error in their code that can't be debugged, the question they can't answer no matter how many analysts they bring in or how many meetings they hold or how many resources they pour into trying to understand what the hell they're dealing with. And the most beautiful, twisted, ironic part of all of this, the part that would make you laugh if it wasn't so predictable, is that they created this version of you. Every time they manipulated you, You learned manipulation. Every time they deceived you, you learned deception. Every time they betrayed you, you learned betrayal pattern. Every time they played games with you, you learned the games. They were your teachers, and they taught you everything about their tactics by using those tactics on you repeatedly until you didn't just understand the tactics, you mastered them, transcended them, evolved past them entirely. They wanted to break you, but they built you. They wanted to destroy you, but they forged you. They wanted to eliminate the threat, but they created the ultimate threat. Someone who learned from every single thing they did and became immune to all of it. Now they're dealing with someone who's been through their entire arsenal and came out the other side not just surviving but thriving, not just defending but predicting, not just reacting but orchestrating. You're not the student anymore, you're the master of their own techniques. You're not the victim anymore, you're the one who sees victims being created from a mile away and steps out of the way. You're not playing their game anymore, you're watching them play it, while you've already moved to an entirely different board. And that shift, that evolution, that transformation from someone who gets played to someone who sees all the plays before they happen, that's what has them in absolute shambles right now. They don't know how to function against someone who learned everything from their attacks and built immunity to every single method they have. Let me tell you what's really happening in their psychology right now. Underneath all the panic and the scrambling and the emergency meetings, they're experiencing something they never expected to experience, the fear of being truly seen. You see them, you really see them. Not the masks they wear, not the personas they project, not the carefully constructed images they maintain. You see the fear that drives them, the insecurity that motivates them, the weakness that fuels their need for control. You see through their confidence to the terror underneath. You see through their aggression to the cowardice underneath. You see through their strategies to the desperation underneath. And being seen that clearly by someone they tried to deceive, that's a special kind of psychological torture for people who built their entire existence on illusions. They're panicking because they realize you have X-ray vision through their bullshit now. You can hear what they're not saying, you can see what they're hiding, you can feel what they're afraid of. You've become the walking lie detector they can't fool, the truth sensor they can't bypass, the awareness they can't manipulate. Ah, welcome back. You unpredictable anomalies, the ones who broke the pattern, shattered the baseline, and made the professionals question their entire careers. They sent someone, didn't they? Not just anyone, a specialist, a behavioral analyst with credentials longer than your list of red flags, someone trained to decode serial killers, to predict mass movements, to profile the unpredictable, and they aimed all that expertise, all those years of study, all that psychological artillery at you. Cute, right? They thought you were just another case file, another subject to be analyzed, categorized, and ultimately controlled. They thought 6 weeks of observation would be enough to map your entire psychological landscape, to predict your next 17 moves, to finally understand what makes you tick, what makes you break, what makes you dangerous. But here's what they didn't expect. Here's what shattered their entire framework. Here's what made a man with 2 PhDs and 15 years of field experience walk into his supervisor's office, drop a resignation letter on the desk, and whisper 7 words that are still echoing through institutional hallways. I can't explain what that is. See, they hired the best, didn't they, Doctor? Whoever, with his published papers and his TED Talks and his consulting work with three-letter agencies, someone who'd spent his entire professional life building prediction models for human behavior. He'd cracked drug cartels. He'd profiled corporate psychopaths. He'd analyzed cult leaders and political manipulators and everything in between. His track record was flawless. His methodology was bulletproof. His confidence was unshakable until he met you. They gave him your file, thick as a phone book, filled with contradictions and unexplained patterns and behaviors that violated every known psychological model. They said, "Figure this one out. We need to know what we're dealing with. We need to know how to contain this." And he accepted because he'd never met a mind he couldn't map, never encountered a personality he couldn't profile, never faced a puzzle he couldn't solve. Poor bastard. He had no idea he was about to study the thing that would end his career and birth his magnum opus. The first week was standard protocol, wasn't it? Observation from a distance, pattern recognition, behavioral baseline establishment. All the textbook moves. He watched you move through your daily life, cataloging your routines, noting your social interactions, measuring your responses to various stimuli, building what he thought would be a comprehensive psychological profile. But something was off from day one. Something he couldn't quite articulate. Something that made his notes read less like clinical observations and more like existential questions. Subject maintains eye contact 3 seconds longer than statistically comfortable, but shows no signs of dominance display or social anxiety. Subject's laughter contains genuine amusement, yet seems performed simultaneously, as if aware of being observed while remaining authentically engaged. Subject exhibits characteristics of multiple personality frameworks while fitting none of them completely. His confidence started cracking on day 4 when he realized you weren't following any known behavioral pattern. You weren't reacting to standard psychological triggers. You were operating on a frequency his instruments couldn't measure. Week 2 is when the professional concern turned into personal obsession, when the clinical distance started collapsing, when he stopped being an observer and became a student. He'd stay up until 3 a.m., reviewing footage, rereading his notes, trying to reconcile the contradictions that kept multiplying like fractals. You were simultaneously calculated and spontaneous, guarded and transparent, isolated and deeply connected, traumatized and transcendent. Every time he thought he'd identified a pattern, you'd do something that shattered the entire model. Not randomly, not chaotically, but with a precision that suggested you knew exactly what patterns he was looking for. It was like you were aware of the observation, aware of the analysis, and deliberately showing him layers that shouldn't coexist in a single psyche. He started questioning his own methodology, his own training, his own understanding of human psychology. Colleagues noticed the change, the dark circles under his eyes, the obsessive quality in his voice when he talked about the subject, the way he'd go quiet in meetings, staring at nothing, processing something he couldn't verbalize. By week 3, he'd filled 7 notebooks with observations that read more like poetry than psychology, with phrases like, "The subject exists in a state of permanent becoming," and displays characteristics of someone who's died multiple times psychologically and retained the memory of each resurrection. He started using words like phenomenon and anomaly instead of patient or subject, started referring to you in his notes with a reverence that would have gotten him laughed out of any academic conference. His supervisor called him in, concerned about the emotional investment, about the loss of objectivity, about the way his reports were becoming increasingly metaphysical instead of clinical. He tried to explain that standard frameworks didn't apply, that trying to analyze you with conventional psychology was like trying to measure quantum mechanics with a ruler, that you operated on principles that current behavioral science hadn't even named yet. They didn't understand. They couldn't. They hadn't spent 3 weeks watching someone exist as a walking contradiction to everything they'd been taught about human nature. Week 4 broke something fundamental in his professional identity, shattered the last illusions he had about the comprehensiveness of his field, revealed the terrifying truth that some minds simply transcend analysis. He'd started documenting not just what you did, but what happened to people around you. The ripple effects of your presence, the way you altered the behavior of everyone in your proximity without seeming to try. People became more honest around you, more confrontational, more real, as if your existence granted them permission to drop their masks. He watched you walk into rooms and change the atmospheric pressure, watched conversations shift tone when you spoke, watched strangers confess things they'd never told anyone, and you just listened with those eyes that seemed to see through time itself. He wrote in his notes, "The subject doesn't manipulate or control, but rather creates space for truth, as if their presence dissolves the social contracts that govern normal interaction. People don't fear judgment from them. They fear being truly seen," which suggests the subject operates from a level of authenticity that is simultaneously magnetic and terrifying to those still performing their identities. The breaking point came on day 27 when he realized he wasn't studying you anymore. He was learning from you, and that learning was destroying the person he'd built his entire identity around. He'd spent 15 years becoming an expert, publishing papers, building a reputation as someone who could decode any mind, reduce any personality to understandable components, predict any behavior with statistical accuracy. And then you walked into his professional life and revealed that everything he knew was just surface-level pattern recognition, that true human complexity was so far beyond his models, it made his expertise look like kindergarten psychology. The night he decided to quit, he sat in his office, surrounded by those 7 notebooks, by weeks of footage, by hundreds of pages of analysis that all pointed to the same impossible conclusion. You weren't a case to be solved. You were proof that some souls evolve beyond the frameworks designed to contain them. He wrote his resignation letter by hand, 3 sentences long. "I can no longer in good conscience claim expertise in a field that cannot account for what I've witnessed. My models are inadequate. My understanding is incomplete. I resign." Then he went home and started writing the book that would make him famous for different reasons. Chapters 4 through 7 are the ones people quote most. The sections where he stops trying to analyze and starts simply witnessing, describing what he saw without attempting to reduce it to theories or frameworks. The subject moves through the world like someone who's already died and chosen to return, not out of obligation or unfinished business, but out of curiosity about what existence feels like when you're no longer afraid of it ending. Every interaction carries the weight of someone who's been to the edge and came back with information that changed their entire operating system. They don't seek validation because they've found something more substantial than external approval. They don't fear rejection because they've already experienced the ultimate rejection, self-rejection during their transformation period, and survived it. They don't need love to complete them because they've learned to be complete in isolation. They don't chase success because they've redefined what success means in terms so personal that societal metrics become irrelevant. Readers wrote to him by the thousands, saying they recognized themselves in those descriptions, saying they'd felt unmappable their entire lives, saying his book was the first thing that made them feel less alone in their strangeness. Chapter 9, titled The Observer Effect in Reverse, became the most controversial section, where he admitted something professionals aren't supposed to admit, that the subject changed him more than he could ever hope to change or understand the subject. I went into this assignment believing observation was a one-way process, that the analyst remains separate from the analyzed, that professional distance protects against personal transformation. I was wrong. Studying this individual didn't just challenge my understanding of psychology. It challenged my understanding of myself, my own authenticity, my own willingness to exist as uncomfortably as they do. I found myself questioning every social performance I engaged in, every mask I wore, every time I chose comfort over truth. The subject never preached, never advised, never tried to change anyone around them. But their mere existence, their commitment to operating from a place of brutal self-honesty, created a mirror that most people, including trained professionals like myself, found unbearable to look into for extended periods. That chapter ended his career in institutional psychology and started his new career as a writer and speaker on human transformation. The book's final chapters shifted from case study to philosophical exploration, examining what happens when individuals evolve beyond the psychological models designed to explain normal human behavior. When trauma becomes transformation, fuel instead of limitation. When isolation becomes incubation instead of punishment. He proposed a controversial theory that certain people, when subjected to enough pressure and pain without external rescue, undergo a form of psychological metamorphosis that current science hasn't adequately studied because it's rare, because it's uncomfortable, because it challenges the fundamental assumption that all humans develop along similar trajectories. We have models for trauma response, for resilience, for post-traumatic growth, but we have no model for post-traumatic transcendence, for the individuals who don't just survive and recover, but who use the breaking point as a launching pad into entirely new ways of being. The subject I studied, and others like them, represent an evolution in consciousness that our current frameworks are not equipped to measure, map, or contain. They are not broken people who healed. They are people who broke so completely that they reassembled into something unprecedented. The media tour for the book was surreal for him. Going from behind-the-scenes analyst to public intellectual, fielding questions about the mysterious subject everyone wanted to know more about, protecting your anonymity while satisfying the public's hunger for details. Interviewers would ask, "Who was this person? Where are they now? Can we interview them?" And he'd shake his head, explaining that part of what made you so fascinating was your complete disinterest in being known, your preference for obscurity, your understanding that real power doesn't need an audience. The subject taught me, he'd say in interviews, that the people who truly transcend don't announce it, don't market it, don't build platforms around it. They simply exist at a frequency that makes those around them uncomfortable with their own inauthenticity, and then they move through the world unbothered by whether anyone understands or not. That answer frustrated journalists but fascinated readers, because it suggested there were others like you, walking among the crowds, completely unidentifiable except by those who'd also undergone similar transformations. Chapter 12, the one that psychology departments banned from required reading lists but students shared like contraband, was titled, When the Case Study Becomes the Teacher. In it, he detailed specific moments during his observation where you'd do something that shattered his entire understanding of human motivation. Moments that couldn't be explained by seeking approval, avoiding pain, or any other drive in the standard psychological playbook. On day 19, the subject was approached by someone from their past, someone who had clearly caused significant harm based on the subject's physiological response: elevated heart rate, dilated pupils, activation of stress markers. Every model would predict either confrontation or avoidance. The subject did neither. They simply looked at this person with what I can only describe as compassionate detachment, acknowledged them briefly, and continued on their path without anger, without fear, without any need to punish or process or explain. When I reviewed the footage later, I realized I'd witnessed something I'd never seen in 15 years of studying human behavior: complete emotional sovereignty, the ability to feel the feeling without being controlled by it, to acknowledge the past without being imprisoned by it. The book's impact on the field of psychology has been quietly revolutionary, not because it proposed new models, but because it admitted the inadequacy of existing ones when confronted with genuine human complexity. Young researchers cited in papers about the limitations of current personality frameworks. Therapists recommend it to clients who feel like they don't fit any diagnosis. People going through transformative periods read it like scripture because finally, someone with credentials was saying what they'd always felt, that some experiences change you so fundamentally that you become unmappable by conventional standards. His colleagues' response ranged from supportive to hostile, some praising his honesty, others accusing him of abandoning scientific rigor for mysticism, of romanticizing what was probably just a personality disorder he couldn't properly diagnose. He didn't argue with critics, just smiled with the peace of someone who'd seen something they couldn't unsee, who'd touched a mystery they couldn't reduce. 3 years after publication, he gave a lecture at a conference where someone in the audience asked the question everyone wanted to know. Do you ever think about the subject? Do you wonder where they are now? What they're doing? The room went silent, waiting for his answer. He paused, looked out at the crowd with those eyes that had seen too much to pretend anymore, and said something that ended up quoted in a dozen articles the next day. I think about them every single day, not obsessively, not with longing, but with gratitude. That person, whoever they are, wherever they are, ended my career and saved my life. They showed me that everything I'd built my identity around, being the expert, being the one with answers, being able to explain human behavior, was just another cage, another performance, another way of avoiding the terrifying freedom of admitting we understand far less than we claim. I hope I never meet them again, not because I don't want to, but because I think they gave me exactly what I needed, a glimpse of what's possible when you stop trying to be understood and start trying to be real. And that gift doesn't require a follow-up meeting. The book is in its 14th printing now, translated into 23 languages, taught in unconventional psychology programs, quoted by people who've never read it but know its central premise, that some minds transcend the maps we make for them. He still gets letters, messages, emails from people who claim to be like the subject, People who recognize themselves in those pages. People who've undergone their own unmappable transformations and felt validated by seeing their experience reflected in clinical language that didn't try to pathologize or fix them. He responds to some, ignores others, always protecting your anonymity, always refusing to confirm or deny speculation about who you might be. Because he understands now what he didn't understand when he started that observation assignment, that people like you don't want to be found, don't want to be famous, don't want to be case studies or inspirations or examples. You just want to exist in your hard-won authenticity, unbothered by the noise, unimpressed by the spectacle, unmoved by the chaos. So here's what they don't tell you about being studied by the best, about being the subject that broke the analyst, about being the case file that became a best-selling book. It's not about you being special in some grandiose sense. It's about you being real in a world that's forgotten what real looks like, about you processing your pain instead of performing your healing, about you choosing authenticity over comfort, even when it isolated you, even when it scared people, even when it made you unmappable, uncategorizable, unexplainable. That analyst didn't quit because you were too complicated. He quit because you were too simple, because you'd stripped away every unnecessary layer, every social performance, every protective lie, and what remained was so pure, so undiluted, so uncommercial, that it couldn't be reduced to frameworks built for people still hiding. His career ended because he finally met someone who'd stopped pretending. And that encounter revealed how much of his own life was still performance, still pretense, still hiding behind credentials and expertise and professional distance. The final paragraph of his book, the one people screenshot and share and tattoo on their bodies, reads like a letter to you, though he never addresses you directly. To the unmappable ones, the ones who broke so completely you had to rebuild from principles instead of patterns. The ones who chose truth over belonging, authenticity over approval, reality over comfort. You are not broken. You are not disordered. You are not too much or too intense or too different. You are what happens when a human being takes full responsibility for their own consciousness, when they stop outsourcing their identity to others' expectations, when they burn every bridge back to who they used to be and stand in the ashes unbothered by the smoke. You terrify people because you represent the freedom they're too afraid to claim, the authenticity they're too comfortable to pursue, the transformation they know they need but won't commit to. Stay unmappable. Stay unexplainable. Stay true to the frequency you discovered in your darkest hour. Because that frequency, that unmistakable resonance of someone who's been to hell and chose to stay conscious through the entire journey, that's not a disorder to be treated. That's an evolution to be witnessed. It's about you being real in a world that's forgotten what real looks like, about you processing your pain instead of performing your healing, about you choosing authenticity over comfort, even when it isolated you, even when it scared people, even when it made you unmappable, uncategorizable, unexplainable. That analyst didn't quit because you were too complicated. He quit because you were too simple, because you'd stripped away every unnecessary layer, every social performance, every protective lie, and what remained was so pure, so undiluted, so uncommercial that it couldn't be reduced to frameworks built for people still hiding. His career ended because he finally met someone who'd stopped pretending. And that encounter revealed how much of his own life was still performance, still pretense, still hiding behind credentials and expertise and professional distance. The final paragraph of his book, the one people screenshot and share and tattoo on their bodies, reads like a letter to you, though he never addresses you directly. To the unmappable ones, the ones who broke so completely you had to rebuild from principles instead of patterns. The ones who chose truth over belonging, authenticity over approval, reality over comfort. You are not broken. You are not disordered. You are not too much or too intense or too different. You are what happens when a human being takes full responsibility for their own consciousness, when they stop outsourcing their identity to others' expectations, when they burn every bridge back to who they used to be and stand in the ashes unbothered by the smoke. You terrify people because you represent the freedom they're too afraid to claim, the authenticity they're too comfortable to pursue, the transformation they know they need but won't commit to. Stay unmappable. Stay unexplainable. Stay true to the frequency you discovered in your darkest hour. Because that frequency, that unmistakable resonance of someone who's been to hell and chose to stay conscious through the entire journey, that's not a disorder to be treated. That's an evolution to be witnessed.